When someone becomes extraordinarily successful, people usually focus on the individual. They describe intelligence, ambition, discipline, talent, and courage. A famous entrepreneur is presented as a visionary who saw what others could not see. A great athlete is praised for natural ability and determination. A brilliant musician appears to possess a gift that separated them from everyone else. Malcolm Gladwell argues that these explanations are incomplete. Exceptional people do not succeed through personal qualities alone. Their achievements are also shaped by opportunities, timing, family background, culture, education, social systems, and historical circumstances. In Outliers, Gladwell examines people whose performance lies far beyond what is considered normal. They include professional athletes, technology entrepreneurs, lawyers, musicians, students, and business leaders. He asks a different question from the one usually asked. Instead of asking only, "What is this successful person like?" he asks, "Where did this person come from, and what opportunities made success possible?" This does not mean effort and talent are unimportant. The people in the book usually work extremely hard, but many others may have similar potential without receiving the same chance to develop it. One child is born at the right time to enter a stronger sports team. Another grows up near a computer laboratory when computers are still rare. One musician receives thousands of hours of live practice. Another never gains access to the same stage. Small initial advantages can grow over time. A little more attention creates more training. More training produces better performance. Better performance creates more opportunities, and the cycle continues. Gladwell's central argument is that success is never purely individual. Behind every outlier is a network of advantages, sacrifices, cultural influences, and opportunities that made exceptional achievement more likely. Understanding these forces does not reduce anyone's accomplishments. It helps society recognize how more people could be given the opportunity to succeed. Blink 1. Success is built from both ability and opportunity. Stories about successful people often begin with personal characteristics. The athlete trained harder, the entrepreneur took greater risks, the student possessed unusual intelligence. These explanations are attractive because they are simple and inspiring. They suggest that anyone can reach the same result through enough determination. Gladwell argues that effort matters, but effort operates within an environment. A talented child cannot become a world-class violinist without access to an instrument, instruction, time, and opportunities to perform. A future software entrepreneur cannot practice programming without access to a computer. A gifted athlete needs coaching, competition, facilities, and the chance to remain inside a development system. Successful people frequently receive opportunities that appear small at first. They are placed in an advanced class, invited to join a stronger team, introduced to an influential person, or allowed to work with new technology. These opportunities create additional experience. The person then becomes better prepared when the next opportunity appears. From the outside, the final result looks like a sudden expression of talent. In reality, ability and opportunity have been strengthening one another for years. This creates an important distinction between potential and achievement. Potential describes what someone might be capable of becoming. Achievement depends on whether that potential is recognized and developed. Two people may begin with similar ability but produce very different outcomes because only one receives the conditions needed to improve. Gladwell wants readers to look beyond the individual and examine the surrounding system. Who provided the training? Who created time for practice? Which rules favored the person? What historical moment made the skill valuable? Success remains personal, but it is never produced by the person alone. Blink 2. The Matthew effect allows early advantages to grow. Gladwell uses the biblical phrase the Matthew effect to describe how advantage accumulates. Those who begin with slightly more often receive even more. Those who begin with less may lose opportunities, even when the original difference was small. Canadian youth hockey provides a clear example. Young players are grouped by age according to a fixed eligibility date. Within one age group, a child born near the beginning of the selection period may be almost a year older than a child born near the end. Among adults, that difference would mean very little. Among young children, it can create a meaningful difference in size, coordination, confidence, and emotional maturity. Coaches may interpret the older child's temporary maturity as greater talent. The child is selected for an elite team, receives better coaching, plays more games, and practices against stronger competition. Those advantages create real improvement. After several years, the player may genuinely be better than the younger children. But the process began partly with an arbitrary date. The original advantage produced an opportunity, and the opportunity enlarged the advantage. The same pattern appears in education. A child who reads slightly better at an early age may be placed in a stronger group. Teachers expect more, provide harder material, and give more encouragement. The child gains confidence and develops faster. Another child may be labeled weak before having enough time to mature. The Matthew effect shows why merit is difficult to separate from accumulated opportunity. By the time people reach the highest level, the performance difference is real. But the path that created the difference may not have been equally available. Systems can reduce this problem by creating several age groups, offering flexible entry points, and giving late developers additional opportunities. Talent is widely distributed. The chance to develop it is not. Blink 3. Mastery requires an extraordinary amount of practice. One of the most famous ideas in Outliers is the 10,000-hour rule. Gladwell argues that exceptional performance in complex fields often requires an enormous amount of focused practice. The number should not be treated as a magical guarantee. Completing exactly 10,000 hours does not automatically create greatness. The quality of practice, coaching, ability, motivation, and the nature of the field all matter. The deeper point is that mastery takes far more preparation than people usually see. By the time an elite performer becomes publicly successful, they may already have spent thousands of hours developing the required skills. This helps explain why opportunity is so important. A person needs access to the activity, enough free time, support, and a reason to continue. Gladwell discusses research on young violinists. The strongest performers had generally accumulated more practice than those who were less advanced. They had not simply been born with talent and allowed it to appear naturally. They had used their ability through repeated effort. Practice changes what a person can do. Movements become more precise. Patterns become easier to recognize. Decisions become faster. Difficult tasks that once required complete attention gradually become more automatic. But people cannot practice seriously without conditions that make practice possible. A child working long hours to support a family may have less time than a child whose family can pay for lessons and protect hours for development. The final difference may look like motivation, even when the opportunity to practice was unequal. The 10,000-hour idea therefore supports two lessons. Individuals should understand that excellence requires sustained effort. Society should understand that effort cannot develop without access. Blink 4. The Beatles became exceptional through unusual performance opportunities. Before the Beatles became internationally famous, they spent long periods performing in clubs in Hamburg, Germany. The conditions were demanding. They played for many hours, often several nights each week, before audiences that expected continuous entertainment. At the time, the band was still developing. They had talent, but talent alone did not explain what they later became. Hamburg provided an unusually intense training environment. The musicians had to learn a large number of songs because they could not repeat the same short performance every night. They needed to improve their timing, stage presence, endurance, and ability to respond to an audience. They performed when tired and continued through weak reactions and imperfect shows. This produced a level of practical experience that many other young bands never received. By the time wider success arrived, the Beatles had already completed an enormous number of live performances. They appeared to rise quickly because the public saw only the final stage of development. The hidden preparation had taken years. The example shows that practice is not always a private activity completed alone. Real environments can accelerate learning by creating pressure, feedback, variety, and repetition. The Beatles did not simply rehearse familiar songs in comfortable conditions. They had to perform in front of real audiences for long periods. Each performance revealed weaknesses and demanded adaptation. Many successful people have a similar Hamburg period. It may be an early job, a small market, a difficult assignment, or an unnoticed project where they gain more experience than competitors. The opportunity may not appear glamorous at the time. Its value becomes clear only later, when accumulated preparation meets a larger chance. Blink 5. Bill Gates succeeded because preparation met a rare historical moment. Bill Gates is often presented as an example of personal intelligence and entrepreneurial ambition. Gladwell does not deny these qualities. He shows how they were combined with an unusually valuable series of opportunities. As a teenager, Gates attended a private school that gained access to a computer terminal during a period when computers were rare and extremely expensive. Most students of his generation could not practice programming directly. They might study computing ideas in theory or submit programs that were processed later. Gates could interact with a machine and receive immediate feedback. He spent large amounts of time programming, found additional systems he could use, and continued gaining experience far beyond what was typical for someone his age. By the time the personal computer industry began expanding, Gates had already accumulated years of practical knowledge. His birth year also mattered. He was young enough to recognize the opportunity created by personal computers, yet old enough to possess serious programming experience when the industry began changing. Someone born much earlier might already have had a secure career and greater responsibilities. Someone born much later would have entered a market where many competitors were already established. Gates's success required intelligence, persistence, business judgment, and risk-taking. But these qualities became extraordinarily valuable because they met the right opportunity at the right historical moment. The lesson is not that Gates merely became lucky. Many people would not have used the same access as intensely. The lesson is that effort and opportunity multiplied one another. Preparation allowed him to recognize the moment. The moment made years of preparation economically powerful. Blink 6. Intelligence matters, but beyond a point it does not guarantee success. High intelligence can provide a major advantage. It helps people learn quickly, understand complex information, and solve difficult problems. However, Gladwell argues that intelligence does not have a perfectly linear relationship with achievement. Beyond a certain level, additional intelligence may provide less practical benefit than people assume. A person needs sufficient cognitive ability to perform advanced work, but after the necessary level is reached, other qualities often become more important. These may include communication, creativity, persistence, practical judgment, confidence, and the ability to work with other people. Gladwell compares intellectual ability with height in basketball. A very short player faces a serious disadvantage, but being taller does not improve performance without limit. After a useful level has been reached, skill, coordination, speed, and decision-making become more important than each additional centimeter. Academic tests may identify certain types of ability without fully measuring whether someone can navigate institutions, persuade others, recognize opportunities, or respond to failure. Gladwell uses the term practical intelligence to describe knowing what to say, whom to ask, when to act, and how to influence a situation. This knowledge is often learned through family and social experience. Some children are taught to question authority respectfully, request assistance, and negotiate with institutions. Others may be taught obedience and independence, but receive less practice asserting their needs. Both groups may possess equal intellectual ability. Yet one may be better prepared to turn that ability into educational and professional opportunity. Raw intelligence creates possibilities. Practical intelligence helps people convert those possibilities into results. Blink 7. Family background teaches people how to deal with institutions. Gladwell compares different styles of childhood development. In some families, parents actively organize children's time, discuss their opinions, negotiate with teachers, and encourage them to speak with adults. Children learn that institutions can be questioned and adjusted. They become comfortable asking for explanations, requesting exceptions, and seeking help. Gladwell describes this as a sense of entitlement, not necessarily in a selfish way, but as the belief that the child has a right to participate in decisions. In other families, children may receive more independence and unstructured time. They may learn responsibility, creativity, and strong family loyalty. But they may have fewer opportunities to practice dealing with schools, medical professionals, and other institutions. When a problem appears, they may accept the decision of an authority figure rather than negotiate. These differences can influence long-term outcomes. Two equally intelligent students may react differently when confused by an assignment. One visits the teacher, requests clarification, and asks for another opportunity. The other remains silent and receives a lower result. Over time, the first student collects more assistance and learns how to use the system. The advantage may look like confidence or motivation, but it was partly taught. This shows why family background affects achievement even when direct financial differences are not considered. Families pass down social strategies. They teach children whether adults are approachable, whether rules can be negotiated, and whether personal preferences deserve to be expressed. Schools and organizations can help by making these unwritten rules more visible. Students should not need a particular family background to learn how to ask for support, communicate professionally, or navigate an institution. Blink 8. Meaningful work encourages persistence. People can endure difficult work when it feels meaningful. Gladwell identifies 3 qualities that often make work satisfying: autonomy, complexity, and a visible connection between effort and reward. Autonomy means having some control over how work is performed. Complexity means that the task is challenging enough to require judgment and development. A connection between effort and reward means people can see that harder or better work produces a meaningful result. This helps explain why some demanding forms of work create pride rather than only exhaustion. Gladwell examines immigrant families who built businesses through long hours and difficult conditions. The work was not easy, but it could offer greater control, measurable progress, and the possibility of improving the family's future. Children growing up around this environment may learn that sustained effort can change circumstances. That belief becomes an important cultural inheritance. The difference between meaningful difficulty and pointless difficulty matters. People are more likely to persist when they understand why the work matters and believe their choices can affect the result. An employee may accept a demanding project when given responsibility and a chance to develop. Organizations often try to motivate people mainly through compensation. Money matters, but meaningful work also depends on structure. Employees need enough ownership to feel responsible, enough challenge to grow, and enough connection between effort and outcome to believe the work is worthwhile. Hard work becomes easier to sustain when people can see a path between what they do today and what they hope to achieve tomorrow. Blink 9. Cultural legacies continue influencing behavior. Culture carries lessons from one generation to another. These lessons can remain influential even after the original conditions that created them have disappeared. Gladwell calls them cultural legacies. He explores how communication styles affected aviation safety. In cultures with strong respect for hierarchy, junior crew members may hesitate to challenge a captain directly. They may communicate concern through indirect suggestions rather than clear warnings. In ordinary social situations, this politeness may be valued. Inside a cockpit during an emergency, indirect language can become dangerous. If the captain misunderstands the warning, the crew may lose precious time. Airlines improved safety by training crews to communicate more directly, distribute authority more effectively, and standardize how concerns were expressed. The lesson was not that one culture was inferior. It was that a behavior useful in one context could become harmful in another. Gladwell also examines regional traditions of honor. In societies where official protection was historically weak, people may have needed to defend their reputations personally. Sensitivity to insult could discourage others from taking advantage of them. The original economic conditions may disappear, yet the emotional response can remain part of regional culture. Cultural legacies influence how people view authority, conflict, effort, risk, and cooperation. They are not permanent laws. People can identify them, decide whether they remain useful, and create new practices. But ignoring culture makes behavior harder to understand. An organization may introduce a policy that appears reasonable while conflicting with deeply learned expectations. Effective change requires recognizing both the current rule and the older cultural habits operating beneath it. Blink 10. Opportunity can be redesigned to create more outliers. Outliers may appear rare because exceptional ability is rare. Gladwell suggests another explanation. Many capable people never receive enough opportunity to develop their abilities fully. Schools close during long holidays, and children from different backgrounds use that time differently. Some attend camps, read regularly, travel, and receive organized learning. Others lose access to academic support. The gap between students can grow, even if the quality of instruction during the school year is similar. Gladwell discusses educational programs that create longer school days, more school days, and a culture of high expectations. The purpose is to give students more learning time and reduce disadvantages that accumulate outside the classroom. This approach is demanding. More time alone does not guarantee success, and students still need strong teaching and support. But it recognizes that opportunity can be structured. The same principle applies to sports, music, technology, and careers. Systems can create several entry points instead of selecting people once at a very young age. They can provide equipment, mentoring, training, and access to people whose families cannot supply them privately. They can examine whether arbitrary rules are wasting talent. Gladwell's conclusion is not that every person will become an extraordinary performer if given the same opportunity. Individuals differ in interests, abilities, and choices. The argument is that society often fails to discover how much ability exists because opportunity is distributed unevenly. Success should inspire more than admiration. It should lead to investigation. What conditions help this person succeed, and can those conditions be offered to more people? The greatest lesson from Outliers may not be how to become one exceptional individual. It may be how to build systems that allow more exceptional individuals to emerge. Key takeaways from the book. Outliers explains why extraordinary achievement cannot be understood through talent and effort alone. Successful people are also shaped by opportunity, timing, family background, culture, education, and historical circumstances. The Matthew effect shows how small early advantages can accumulate. Initial selection leads to better training, which creates stronger performance and further opportunity. Mastery requires an enormous amount of high-quality practice, but practice depends on access, time, coaching, and support. The Beatles developed through years of demanding live performances before becoming famous. Bill Gates combined intelligence and hard work with rare early access to computers and the right position in technological history. Intelligence matters, but beyond the necessary level, additional intelligence does not guarantee achievement. Practical intelligence, the ability to communicate, negotiate, seek help, and navigate institutions, can be as important as academic ability. Family background teaches social strategies that influence how confidently people deal with schools, employers, and authority figures. Work becomes more meaningful when it contains autonomy, complexity, and a visible relationship between effort and reward. Cultural legacies shape communication, attitudes, and behavior long after the conditions that created them have changed. Successful systems recognize when inherited habits are useful and when they must be redesigned. Opportunity can be created through better educational schedules, broader access to training, multiple entry points, and more thoughtful selection rules. The book's central lesson is that no one succeeds alone. Every outlier stands on a foundation of personal effort and surrounding opportunity. By understanding both, society can move beyond simply celebrating exceptional people and begin creating the conditions that allow more people to become exceptional.